The NFL constantly has horrible takes every single year, so today I thought I'd throw my name in the hat. I'm going to be giving you guys my top 5 hottest take for next year. Now, of course, we are several months away from the year even starting. We haven't even had free agency, we haven't even had the draft, so this is way too early and it's going to be super inaccurate. So take everything I say with a tiny grain of salt. But we're going to start off with maybe my hottest take of the video. I believe that Justin Fields will have a better year next year than Caleb Williams. Now, I'm a big-time Caleb Williams supporter. I think of all the people out there in this world, I might support Caleb Williams the most, but I'm also realistic. And I think Justin Fields has a lot to gain from being very good next year, regardless of what team he's on. And I think if he joins a team like Pittsburgh or Atlanta with what they have offensively, Justin Fields could generally be a top 10 quarterback. Now, that's not my hot take here. My hot take is that he'll be better than Caleb Williams. I think Caleb Williams could potentially struggle on a team next year if he joins a team like Chicago or even Washington, because those are teams that are going to be developing a lot of new identities, a lot of new cultures. There's just going to be a lot of building next year for those two teams. And while I think Chicago and Washington will do definitely fine, I think Justin Fields might be more successful statistically and even performance-wise than a guy like Caleb Williams. I even think that follows suit a tad bit with other quarterbacks like Jaden Daniels. Now again, I think Caleb Williams will be a good quarterback in the NFL, and I think he'll definitely work out long-term for whatever team. I just think that next year, in their rookie seasons, I think Justin Fields will be the better quarterback. And the fact that's a hot take kind of tells you a lot, but I do think that most people would probably think that Justin Fields will be much worse. The next hot take I have is that Anthony Richardson and the Indianapolis Colts will win their division. Yes, they will beat teams like the Houston Texans and the Tennessee Titans and the Jacksonville Jaguars to win that division. Now, this is no hate to the Houston Texans. I think the Houston Texans will be championship contenders next year, but I genuinely do believe that if Shane Steichen gets full control of this team yet again with Anthony Richardson fully healthy, the optics for this team can be long-term is through the roof. We saw what Shane Steichen was able to do with Philadelphia when they had Jalen Hurts, and while I'm not sitting here comparing Jalen Hurts back in 2022 to Anthony Richardson next year, especially with all the injury concerns, but what I am saying is the makeup of the Colts, if they get better this offseason, they bring back Michael Pittman, maybe they address some of their cornerback problems, they could be damn good. They already have a good offensive line, a good running back, some good pieces defensively, and of course in the receiving room. But the biggest reason why I think they could win the division is Shane Steichen. Now, I love what Houston is building, and I'm not here to discredit them at all. And while I know I have a bunch of Houston Texans fans who are probably going to hate me in the comment section below, just hear me out. I think that Anthony Richardson has such tremendous upside with his running ability, his accuracy, and just overall his dynamic ability to play football. He's one of those few quarterbacks who, despite the fact that he hasn't played a whole lot, I trust him more than a lot of other guys out there. Anthony Richardson has proven to me in the short amount of time he was able to play that he has MVP-like upside. That's not my prediction. Again, I'm not predicting Anthony Richardson will win MVP, though I wouldn't be shocked. What I am here to say is I think that that Colts team could potentially leap over a team like Houston. Hell, we saw that same team last year be a couple plays away from winning the division with Gardner Minshew as a starting quarterback. And while I understand that Houston's only going to get better next year after they get more experience and some more players, I think that does say a bit of numbers of what Shane Steichen can do with the guys they already have. You put Anthony Richardson on this team last year, I think the team wins the division pretty easily. So I think that will follow suit next year. And while I don't think it's going to be an easy win for the Colts to win the division, I do think the Colts have the highest chance to win the division next year. My next prediction is that Bijan Robinson will win the Offensive Player of the Year award. Now, I know this is high praise, but if there's any running back out there who I think can win it that is not named Christian McCaffrey, it's Bijan Robinson. I considered Breece Hall on this one, but Bijan Robinson to me is the better pure running back. In my opinion, I think Bijan Robinson is the best running back in the league outside of Christian McCaffrey. Now, that's not saying he's been proven or he's as productive as other guys. That is just as a pure talent, I think Bijan Robinson is basically compared to none outside of McCaffrey, but even then, I think Bijan's upside is just as good as Christian McCaffrey's. And with the Atlanta Falcons potentially getting a new quarterback, maybe Justin Fields, maybe Kirk Cousins, maybe Russell Wilson, that will do nothing but help Bijan Robinson. Now, I know the classic debate on this one's going to be, well, if he couldn't do it last year with Arthur Smith, who traditionally loves to run the ball a ton, why would he do it under Raheem Morris and under this new LA Rams system? Well, let me explain a bit. I wouldn't be shocked if under this system, under a new quarterback, they're going to rely on this running back. They're going to rely on this offensive line. And as long as Atlanta doesn't take a huge step in the rushing department next year, I'd imagine that Bijan is going to easily get 20 to 25 carries per game, which was just something that last year Arthur Smith was not really willing to continue to do. Arthur Smith sometimes would just completely take him out of the game for no reason, and then opted to go with a guy like Tyler Algier, who I still think will be productive this year. I don't think it's going to take away from what Bijan Robinson is capable of doing. I think they're going to complement each other nicely, but Bijan will get about 75% of the snaps. But for running backs, you're not only looking at the rushing ability, but also the receiving ability. And Bijan Robinson is just as good as a guy like Christian McCaffrey. So in my opinion, I think Bijan Robinson could easily have over 2,000 total scrimmage yards and be right up there for the Offensive Player of the Year award. Next up, my fourth hottest take, and yet again, my war with the LA Chargers fan base is going to continue. I think the Chargers finished third in their division. To me, Kansas City is almost a lock for pick number 1, and I also think that the Denver Broncos are almost a lock for number 4 in their division, given all the problems they have. So that then puts you in the Vegas versus LA debates. And while I know everyone's going to say my bias is peeking through again, the Las Vegas Raiders, in my opinion, are just a better team than the Chargers. If you look unbiasedly, the Raiders have by far the better roster. Now, the coaching wise, I'll definitely give to LA. Quarterback wise, I'll 100% give to LA. But everything else, I have to say the Raiders have something better than what the LA Chargers are going to have next year. Because right now, they're negative $20-something million in cap space. They're going to have to get rid of a guy like Mike Williams or Keenan Allen or Khalil Mack or Joey Bosa. But then you got to replace those guys. And while I think they're going to have a good draft, and I think they will address the tight end room, the offensive line, certain other positions, there's still a lot of stuff that has to get fixed. Whereas for the Raiders, they're not really in that big of a need of anything outside of really a quarterback and a handful of positions on defense. So while I'm not going to sit up here and say that the Raiders are going to dominate the Chargers or anything like that, or I'm not going to sit here and say the Raiders are even playoff contenders, but I think they will finish with at least one more win than the LA Chargers and finish second over the Chargers. Again, if you don't know anything about my last couple videos, you would know that I've kind of been at war with the LA Chargers, and it's going to have to continue. I'm sorry, Chargers fans, but I just think the Raiders are better than the Chargers, and hopefully you guys can sort of see where I'm coming from. Again, I'm not coming at this from any point of hate. This is just how I think it is. My last hot take is that I think the Seattle Seahawks could make a run in the playoffs next year. Now, that's not me saying the Seattle Seahawks will win the division, because I don't see them beating San Francisco, and that's also not me saying the Seattle Seahawks will win the Super Bowl. But after missing the playoffs this year and being a first-round exit last year, I think they're going to be able to make a deep playoff run. Now, I'll leave the deep playoff run up to your interpretation. I personally think it's either second or third round. I think either way, that's a pretty deep playoff run. But with the new Mike Macdonald hire and his system in the defensive side of things, I think that's going to be a really good defense next year. It already has some really good cornerbacks. There's also a couple guys in the defensive line. I think their linebackers are solid too. It really just needed a new scheme and some new spice to add to it, and well, Mike Macdonald might be the best one out there. To mention, they'll likely take a defensive player to add to this defense, if not quarterback potentially. So more than likely this defense is going to get 10 times better, and I think next year they're going to have a lot of good things going with them. Tyler Lockett could be cut, but then you're going to promote Jackson Smith and Jigba to be that number 2 guy, and hopefully he can take the next step. And in my opinion, as long as Geno Smith is there, they're going to be a good team. I think they're going to be better this year than they were last year pretty easily. And even then last year, they had some big time wins over a team like Philadelphia, and later in the year, they also had some competitive matchups with Dallas and San Francisco. Again, this is not me saying that the Seattle Seahawks will win a championship or they'll even be anywhere close to that, but I think as a roster, they're going to get 10 times better as well as 10 times better coached. This is no disrespect to Pete Carroll, but the system he was running last year was a bit predictable and it just was not working. So under Mike Macdonald and under some new systems and under some new guidance, I think this team could take a massive step next forward to make that deep playoff run. My only question for this team will be, can Geno Smith be the guy on a good playoff team? I think that'll still be up in the air. I do think he will be the starter next year. I just don't see them trading up or taking a Michael Penix in the first round. I just don't think it's likely. So those are my top 5 hot takes. I'll probably have a part 2 after the draft or after free agency. So let me know your biggest hot takes in the comment section below. But I love you guys. Peace.